and then it became like a little experiment in my own life of like, what am I without this crutch? Who am I?
Yeah.
Can I be not boring? You know?
And now you're still boring.
And I'm still boring, and I'm okay with it.
You're a snooze, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Ann Gregory.
And I'm Rebekka Johnson. And we are Non-Drinking Buddies.
We are friends, comedy partners, moms, and we are not drinking together.
Yes. And we found ourselves, it's been about a year, which is amazing. Go us. And we found ourselves having these conversations when we're out at social events, parties, and people asking us, like, why did we quit drinking? How did we quit drinking? Mm-hmm. And we decided that we would start a podcast to talk about that and the ways that we're still having so much fun. We're fun.
We are so much fun.
Yes.
We're not always fun, but we have found this last year to be a lot of fun because we can remember it.
Yes.
I don't get 72-hour migraines anymore.
I'm not hungover at soccer practice.
Yeah, it's been a really great thing in our lives, and people don't talk about it. They talk about the hardship of quitting drinking, and we want to talk about the fun of life of sobriety, you know?
Yeah. So it's exciting to have this podcast. And listen, this podcast is not just for sober people.
No.
It's for people who might want to take a break from drinking, do a dry January.
February, March. Not April.
Not April. No, not April.
April Fools. You can do April.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh, you can quit any old time.
No, but it's just about people who are questioning if drinking is still fun in their lives, or if maybe they would have a better life if they,
gave it up,
cut back, whatever. And another caveat here is we are not experts on this matter.
No, we're fools. We're actual fools.
We're idiots.
Yeah.
But we don't know everything. We are learning these things along with you, And so we invited other people, guests, who are at different points on their sober journey to enlighten us about what life can be like without alcohol.
And today we have an incredible guest.
Oh.
He's an actor who's been in Parenthood, Jason versus Freddy,
Gravity Falls. Oh my God, Dipper in Gravity Falls.
and ironically Drunk History. Is that irony?
That is irony.
Okay, great.
I think so.
Good.
I know, isn't it ironic? Alanis
Don't you think?
Morissette is not irony.
But being on Drunk History and then being on a sober podcast is irony.
Irony.
Okay, welcome
I don't know.
to Grammar Lessons.
Some grammarian is going to write it.
Good. If they're talking about us, that's a good thing, baby. That's a good thing. So, this guest, back to the guest.
Incredible.
Let's give it up for Jason Ritter.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Thanks for having me. I love it.
You love it already? He loves it already.
Oh, that's great. That's so great.
do.
Yeah.
You're very nice.
Extremely nice. Yeah.
So, Jason, you and I have known each other for a while.
Yes.
You used to do guest comedy spots in my show, The Apple Sisters.
Yeah, so it was so fun.
A show that we would have a bottle of whiskey and a bottle of wine for the beginning of every show. That was the celebration before.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Were you drunk during the shows too? Or
yeah.
Awesome.
I mean,
or like tipsy.
Tipsy, yeah, but I mean, certainly, we there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Especially I would be nervous before my little part, and then once I was done and the show was still going, I'd have a little more.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I know. Yeah, because it was like a long
That
time
was
ago.
the whole culture. When I would do comedy shows too, I would just drink so much beforehand. But not enough that I couldn't remember my set or things like that. But I would.
There were
drink,
times I couldn't
loosen up.
remember.
Yeah,
there
to
were
loosen
times.
up, exactly.
Yeah. I guess sometimes I got a little too loose.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
A little too loose. But the Apple Sisters is kind of like a crazy, wild, over-the-top show. So, I didn't, when I think back to those times, I don't think of you being drunk.
I don't think of you being. I don't think of. There was nobody at those shows that was like, ooh, okay, maybe we should hide the whiskey from
that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just, and also the improvisational nature. So if something messed up, we would incorporate it. It was really fun.
One of the things we would do is we'd sometimes have a flask on stage, and it was like holy water for one of the characters who was like conservative Christian, but we'd put whiskey in it. and pretend it was water. So do you think that means that I had a problem?
No. And the fact that like our brains worked with drinking that much is bonkers to
Young
me.
brains.
Young brains,
I know.
but also like alcoholic brains.
For sure.
That could just handle that amount of drinking.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
The more I think about it, I think even just having a flask is like a
Good marker.
yeah. I mean, I definitely had one.
Yeah.
You're like, I could put this right in my pocket, and it could be a total secret.
That's so
yeah.
You can bring it anywhere except on a plane. Fuck.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I have to spend $20 for a drink.
Exactly.
I remember going to the park with my kids with a hydro flask full of beer.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Like thinking that was normal. Bringing it for another mom and like being like, this is totally, it's not normal. Or like going to a kid's birthday party and there wasn't booze.
Oh, yeah,
And then
yeah.
you're really
Being
mad.
upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well,
I
even
woke up on a Saturday morning.
I know it'd be
to
like
bring
10
my
a.m.
kid.
Yeah. Where's
Yeah.
the wine? You're like,
Exactly.
what? Yeah.
yeah. Well, even I had a birthday party for my son, and even though I don't drink anymore, I still was like, well, I have to have alcohol for the drinkers.
Oh, for sure.
Because I can't let them down.
I know. Yeah, we just had her birthday party. We had alcohol. We
Yeah.
had a lot of alcohol left over too at the end.
Yeah. People don't drink as much. Now, how long have you been not drinking?
I have been not drinking for 10 years.
Wow.
I just hit my 10-year mark a couple weeks ago.
That
That's
is
amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. October sober month.
October sober. Yeah, and
yeah.
we quit in December. A December to remember. We're sponsored by Lexus.
Yeah, finally we remember. Finally we can remember now. Yeah.
first
Finally
time.
remember.
Yeah.
But we found out that we had quit on the exact same day.
Yeah, it was like
I
a week
thought you
later.
planned that together.
No.
Wow,
And
that's
we were both
so
like,
cool.
we both, every time we hung out, we would drink.
Yeah.
And
We
so-
go to like happy hour and then pick up the kids like normal boozy moms.
Or we would have, hang out at our house,
Yeah.
at one of our houses and drink.
Drink.
As that's what I guess normal people do. Or maybe abnormal, the amount that I would do it.
And we both told it to each other, like, can I tell you a deep, dark secret? Like we were kind of like almost
Ashamed.
Yeah, I'm leaving the party.
That's
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
I
I
felt
quit.
like that.
I quit drinking. She's like, me too. And I was like, when? She's like, December 3rd. I'm like, me too. I was like, what?
That is so cool. I love that.
Yeah. And I quit because I would get these debilitating migraines. Like sometimes
Oh,
for
yeah.
like 72 hours, I would barf my brain out, like feel dehydrated, even after like 1 or 2 glasses of wine. So I quit for health reasons.
And I quit because I'm an alcoholic.
Okay.
It's a little different.
So you aren't an alcoholic.
You know what? I think I was borderline, particularly during the pandemic. Like 5 o'clock would hit. I'd be like the virtual school, like homeschooling my kids, which I didn't sign up for, trying to work,
Oh, I
not
did. I
having
signed
work.
up.
You signed up for it?
When I was pregnant. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
God.
Good job. Good job. I didn't. And so like 5 o'clock would come and I'd pour myself a glass of wine, but it was like one glass of wine that was like honestly like this big. It was like
always
huge.
more moderate. She's more of a like able to live in moderation in general.
Yeah.
And so even with drinking, like it wasn't. Yeah, like I don't know. I feel like you could take it or leave it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Whereas I just loved partying
Me
and
too.
drinking all the time.
Me too.
And I would often drink and not remember. And so for me, I quit because I just kept forgetting all of my hangouts.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And then also, I was like, I never really get to hang out with my friends that much. And I don't remember hanging out with them when I do.
Yeah.
And it was just too much. And hangovers, like, I would be at soccer games hungover.
Oh, hangovers
And
are
not
no
everyone
fun.
else was hungover.
Yeah,
You know, all
yeah.
the other parents, they were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I'm like, I'm hungover every Saturday, So yeah, it just was. I just reached a limit, and
Yeah.
but
So we told each other, and then like honestly, it's been a godsend this last year to like have Rebekka.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times like I felt like going back. Like we were in Scotland for a month this summer,
Hard.
and like. There
Whiskey
was
tasting
There's a
rooms
whiskey
every-
tasting room, and I was like, maybe we go in. She's like, what the fuck are you? What are you going
I
to?
was like, you can,
I know.
but I really was like, you can. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I just can't. Like, and she's like, no, I'm not going to. And I was like, okay, like, but I'm like, if you want to, that's okay. I just personally can't. So it's totally different.
Those things are so hard, and it's funny how your brain or my brain will do things like when there's something like that, like a whiskey tasting. drinking,
I'm
like, I want to go because I'm a taste connoisseur. And I won't, like, it's just funny. Your brain is like, it's just not about the alcohol. You want to know the difference. And,
That's right.
So
Or
funny.
like when in Rome, like this is what it's cultural. You know? I'm just
oh my
being
gosh.
so adult here. And like, I think that's like why we want to do this, is to talk about like how kind of we're fed this idea that like drinking equals fun, and like drinking equals like being an adult, but like that's kind of a lie that we're sold, because alcohol sales means money. Like not drinking means no money. Like
air. Nobody makes money on the air.
Exactly.
How do you still have fun? But first, I want to get to like what led you to your decision to stop drinking.
My decision to stop drinking was, I guess I would call it like a soft ultimatum. I was, when Melanie and I first met, the first couple of years, I was not sober. I was drinking, and it was funny because like when I did get sober, there were a lot of people in my life who were like, huh? Like, it wasn't like I was the guy who was like always crazy or something like that. There would be a couple nights I had a couple blackouts, and it is a bummer. You're like, I'm going to see my friends, so hey, we're partying, and then you like barely remember anything. Like, is that fun or did I break something? So Melanie basically at a certain point said, you can keep drinking, but I can't be with you if you keep drinking.
Wow.
Which was amazing. And then we entered into this very interesting period of time for me. I'll try not to overuse the word interesting. Where I wasn't not drinking for myself yet.
Right.
Yes.
I was not drinking for... I was like, she deserves me to at least try this. But also, and part of, I think, my alcoholic drinking was I just have, my whole life, there's just been a thing of like, where's the exit? Where's the escape? How do I get out of a situation? Anxiety and things like that. And so... So there was a point in time in the early days of my sobriety where and also, by the way, before she said that, I had tried to stop drinking a couple times before because I was recognizing that it was a problem, and I was like, all right, I'll just do 90 days sober, and then I'll prove to myself that I'm not an alcoholic, and then I can get back to binge drinking.
Go right back where I was.
Right back where I was. And one time I made it 86 days.
Wow. Out of the 90.
Out of the 90.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then I was like, I can't believe I couldn't just wait 4 days to like prove it to myself. But then maybe I wouldn't be here.
Right.
It was just a thing where like there would be times where we would be, like a conflict would arise, and if we were on the phone, this is to show a little part of like how I was a bit crazy. But if I was on the phone, there would be times where I would like pour a little whiskey in a cup, and we would be talking it out and figuring stuff out, and I would have it there and be like, if I take a sip of this, the relationship is done and over for good. So if this argument gets to a point where I start to panic, there's like my parachute out of the plane. But I know that if I take that, I can never come back. So, because she was very clear. And that helped me because no matter how, I would get really triggered in like arguments and feel, I'd start to feel cornered, even though she was so good at always trying to solve the problem and not just fighting for the sake of fighting. And I never could do it. It never was worth it. I was like, maybe we can still solve it. And then at the end of every conversation, I'd pour it down the drain and be like, whew, that was close. And, and it was so weird that I would have put my future and all the happy feelings that I was getting from my sobriety on another person. That was like the danger is...
Yeah, because if she said something, then you could blame it on her.
Yeah, or if I just couldn't handle it. Yeah. I mean, I knew it would be my fault, but I also... There was an element of like, if I'm causing her too much pain with all of this, then I can just leave, and maybe there's enough of me that's sort of broken that I can't actually be with another person. So this will be like, you're free, and I'm I'll deal with my own stuff or something. So that was unhealthy.
That sounds great to me.
Yeah. But it did help because at that time, like I really kind of didn't feel worth being sober for, but she did. Like I didn't care as much about myself as I do now. No, I didn't care as much about myself as her. So it was helpful initially to be like, I won't do this because I want to keep this relationship going, and I can't imagine not ever seeing her again, or like seeing her at a party and being like, oh, hi. So I at a certain point I switched over to doing it for myself, and here I am.
That's amazing. And like, what tools did you find helpful, like in like the initial months of sobriety, and like?
At first, I was going to AA meetings like every day, basically. That was what I had been told to do. Like the first 90 days, just go every day. And I did it almost like a prison sentence. I was like, here, and a lot of times, because I was sort of borderline, I would hear a lot of the wild and crazy stories and go, see, I was never that bad. So I probably can go back to drinking after 90 days.
Yeah, because I feel like you end up hearing stories of people who went on crazy Coke binges and drove with their baby in the backseat, things like that.
Yeah,
and you're oh, well, I'm just drinking too much that I can't remember.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like I had the similar thing of like, even the nights that I didn't remember, most of my friends the next day were surprised I didn't remember the night before.
Yeah.
That I was typically not so insane that they could tell.
Right.
So when I quit,
it was
even
crazy.
my husband was like, oh, for good. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I've tried to cut back and it just hasn't happened. So I really did it for me.
Yeah.
But it was also just like, I was like, oh, I'm worried, like, I don't know, being in my 40s and stuff. I was like, feel like this is going to give me cancer. Like, I just had this back of my mind thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was thinking about that. But it's interesting to be in a place where it's not like the rock bottom that you hear about all the time.
Exactly.
And it's not always that. And I think that sometimes people wait for that.
Yeah. And I do feel lucky that I didn't have to hit whatever that would have been for me. I mean, still, that was the lowest point, but it's like, okay, so I guess that was my bottom, unless I relapse and go even further down. But yeah, it's confusing because you go, okay, so if I'm not like, if I don't have, you talk to people and they'd be like, I had a couple beers and then I'm doing crack, and I'm like, okay, so like,
but I'm not that.
So I'm not that, so I'm okay. And then someone was like, I think you're listening for the differences. Start listening to the similarities. And I was like, oh, okay. And then, and it was those kinds of things. In those AA meetings, it was always interesting. It was always like sort of fascinating to hear people's stories. But every once in a while, there would be like one person who would say something and it would just like drop in. It would feel specific and feel like, oh, I know exactly what that feeling is. Before you had the beer and you had crack, somebody said something to you and a switch flipped and you went, I'm going to go there tonight.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I know that feeling.
That's fascinating. So yeah, it's like, I think that's one thing that's really interesting to me is that is quitting is very personal. Like it's just not working for your life anymore. And that can look like a million different things.
That's Yeah, some people were like, there were some people there who I was like, why are you here? They're like, I have a glass of wine a night. And I was like, but it's
that was
their
like,
whole...
like me, but I was dependent on the behavior to like relax. I couldn't shut down. I also have anxiety and stuff like that. So it would be like, okay, you can shut down your brain now. And it's like, well, there are other ways that we can do that.
Yeah.
So what are some of those ways with you, like shutting down the anxiety?
Oh man. It was hard at first, like going to parties and stuff like that. It was like, I'd been drinking since I was not heavily or crazily, but I think I started probably 14 or 15, experimenting. So I had about a 14 or 15-year-old's level of like social, without alcohol, social interactions.
Oh, yeah.
And I certainly wasn't like the crazy guy anymore who was going to go in the, jump in whatever body of water was nearby or climb a tree or whatever. So there were times initially in those parties where I just had to sort of sit with this idea that maybe I'm like a boring guy. You know, and it was so weird. You know, I'd talk to someone and then the conversation would sort of die down, and I go, ugh, and I feel like anxiety. Like, what do I say when I keep going? And they go, all right, well, nice to meet you. And I'd be like, you know, and then I go, wow, okay. But it was like exercising a new muscle that I just hadn't ever done, because alcohol was such a part of how I interacted with people and would allow me to not be so nervous. And then it became like a little experiment in my own life of like, what am I without this crutch? Who am I?
Yeah.
Can I be not boring? You know?
And now you're still boring.
And I'm still boring, and I'm okay with it.
You're a snooze, but it's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And we relate to that so much because we were just talking about this before the podcast. We both went to Halloween parties, and like after an hour, we're like, I'm going to go. Everyone was drinking around us. And like, I can just talk about your costume so many times, or like, it's just so, I'm still working on that muscle, you know?
Yeah, it's really,
it gets easier.
Yeah. It's the sort of surface level conversation. It's the friends that you're not like going so deep with, or like for us being comedy people, it's like, if we could just do bits, great.
Yeah.
But if it's like just other parents or just other people that I sort of know, I have such a hard time. And I'm like, I guess alcohol just dulled my discomfort with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah. It with me, I just was like, it helped me not care so much and overthink so much, and you know, it allowed me to sort of let go of that, and then it ends up being a little bit like Dumbo's magic feather. Dumbo is also a drunk, as you know. Now he found out he could fly when he was drunk. And so, you know, like all of that stuff that was fun, and that is all you. That's all within you. It's not like the alcohol is some magic potion that brings something out of you that's not there, for better or for worse. But yeah, so it's you start to get that back, and you start to feel more like yourself. And for me, now the beginning maybe hour of a party is the most awkward, and then as other people start to get drunk, I start to loosen up with them, which is weird, and they're acting a certain way. It's so interesting to see because I never noticed like the drunkest people at the party, because I probably was right there with them, and now it's just so funny to be like, oh wow, so I would let all these people drive. And I think, you know, it's an interesting thing, is I never really noticed before.
It's like the volume is slowly turning up in the party. Everyone talks louder and louder, and you're like, oh, we're shouting now, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's just, it's so bonkers when you're sober around drunk people. Like, it's kind of fun though.
It is kind of fun. And then there's a point too where like always at the end of the night with someone who's, you know, usually they've stayed the latest because they're also trying to like sober up before they drive home or get an Uber or whatever, or they're just staying. But like when it gets to the point where someone's telling you the same story like again and again, or like, no, you don't understand, and you're just like, I'm just so happy that I'm not this person anymore. Like it helps sort of reinforce that, and not that I never have any judgment, because I was that guy, but it's just like a little reminder of yes, that is who I would be. Like all the fun stuff I would blow right through and get to be this guy at the end of the party.
I always think that, and I think in the morning. I'm so happy in the morning.
Gosh, no
like,
hangover.
I love waking up and being like, and I just feel so happy I'll never have a hangover again. Like I'm so grateful, because I feel like I missed out on lots of things. Like I missed weird, stupid things. Like when I first got on Glow, we were all going to a wrestling event that we were invited to be like VIP to this wrestling event.
Oh my gosh.
And I was too hungover to go. So I miss that. And I'm like, that's really fucking dumb. Like I actually still regret missing this amazing opportunity because I was too hungover and I couldn't physically go. And like, I'm so glad that I don't have that anymore. Like that's incredible. And I also think about, in terms of the fun, I'm like, I'm fun during the day. Like,
you're a lot of fun.
Like when hanging out with like girlfriends or something, like just joking around, having fun. We can run bits and be funny during the day. And I'm like, oh right, I can just take that fun thing where there was never a chance for alcohol to be in there, and just be that same person at night. So I'm still kind of like learning that. But once I cross over, like in Scotland, we were also with Kate Nash, who was producing our show, who also doesn't drink.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And the three of us like laughed so hard
about the stupidest shit.
Yeah, and there was
it's
no
the best.
Like alcohol was not coming up because we just don't drink. So, but still like laugh. So I know that I can be that person.
Yes,
but
and
I
that
think
fun
when
is
there's
still
alcohol there's a crankiness inside me that I'm not having it, even though I don't want it, and I'm grateful that I'm sober. I still think there's a natural like grump that comes in around 6 o'clock, and especially when all my friends are drinking and the people I used to drink with are drinking.
Yes.
And as gracious as they are, and they'll be like, I got you non-alcoholic beer, and here's 50 non-alcoholic wines.
I know, it's so
and I'm
sweet.
Like,
people are really nice about it.
Yeah. Well, so they'll be like, is it okay if I drink it? Yes. You do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. This is my thing.
I'll deal with my crap.
Did you avoid parties at first, or did you start going to them right away, or like?
I started going to. I had this whole thing where I was like, I'm taking that out, but I don't want to not do anything else. So I almost like would, defiantly be like, my friends are at a bar and I'm going,
Same with us.
We're the same way.
We're proving it to ourselves. Like I know a lot of people avoid it, and we decided to go right away. So yeah.
And the same thing with like alcohol in my house. I didn't pour it all down the drain. Again, it's such a specific thing for everybody. A lot of people have to do that, but I wanted to feel for myself like I wasn't drinking it just because it was there, like that I had the control over it.
Yeah.
But so I would go out, and that was the toughest thing, especially where. But it was also interesting because again, it's like a little experiment where you're seeing a version of yourself that you kind of barely know.
Right. Yeah.
So someone would come up and be like, "Hey, I got this shot for you," and I would be like, "Not tonight," I have to be like, "Oh, I do that all the time."
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm just like I couldn't be like. It was so scary for me to say like I don't drink.
Yeah.
I had to just be like, oh, totally, but, like...
I'm on diet.
Whatever it was.
I just
so
say
weird.
I'm not drinking, like, just like for like the present moment. And then usually people just are like, okay. But if I say I don't drink, sometimes people say like, why? And then it's like,
that's
okay.
That's a good way
because I was dependent on it for my anxiety, and I'd get these headaches, and I like, missed my sister's bachelorette party because I was, you miss shit and blah, blah, blah because of a hangover.
Also, sometimes like I've realized when I have said, oh, I don't drink, sometimes people take that as like a judgment on themselves or something, and they're like, and then it just sort of sours the the vibe.
I think that there's people that they do feel maybe potentially like alcohol is not great for them. But in that moment, they'll be like, well, I tried to quit. I cut back, but and they go on their thing, which I think I used to do.
Same, yeah.
And, and then it becomes about that, and that's okay. I don't mind, like, talking to people about it, or they'll be like, how'd you quit, or why'd you do it, or but it becomes about them like justifying why they have a drink in their hand.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I'd rather like talk about that another time. Like, I've had people take me for coffee to discuss how I quit.
And, me too.
Like, but at the party, I'm like, oh, then I feel self-conscious.
Yeah.
I feel like someone offers me a drink. Actually, I am not in that spot yet. I go, oh no. Like,
that's good. That's good.
I panic. Like someone, I'm like, no. And then they'll be like, oh, you don't drink? Oh, I thought that was just like you quit for like a month. I was like, no, I don't. Suddenly I become like anxious, and I need to. And I
know it's weird because it's like a personal decision, so it's not affecting anybody else, but it's such a weird thing how we carry it with other people. And there was a time where a person that I tangentially knew was like, "Here you go, man," and handed me a beer, and I just held it. And then I just was like looking for a place to put it down where he wouldn't see it. I was like,
don't
do I pour it on the floor? Do I do I do
a fake drink? Like,
like Shawshank Redemption down my leg. Just going out to the ball field. But again, like those moments where I'm holding a beer, I'm thinking to myself, whoa, that is so crazy that I couldn't just say that.
And the only people, I feel like if somebody's kind of weird about it, it's definitely their own issue. And I know that if I step back, but sometimes I get so self-conscious that I'll tend to over-explain. Well, you're going, no, I'll be like, no, I'm going through perimenopause, which has made my migraine so much worse. I think it's too much. I'm not doing progesterone. Like, if people are like, I don't need to know your hormonal makeup.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
here's my last doctor's report.
Yeah. Here's my blood work. Yeah.
I had, so right before I quit, I was getting paid to make comedy videos for a wine magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And literally my whole life was centered on alcohol. Like, that was my, even part of my career. I used to produce a show, which you had been on, Speakeasy, where it was like a interview show and a cocktail bar. Like, so much of everything was about drinking. So I quit, but I didn't want to tell my boss from the wine magazine that I quit. Right. So I went to a wine tasting and I brought like a soda that kind of looked like white wine, and in the bedroom, I snuck and poured it into a wine glass. She'll probably listen to this and be like, Rebekka, you quit drinking? Because she doesn't know.
Right.
And I would pour it into a wine glass and just have it.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, you got to taste from this bottle. I'm like, oh, I already still have some. And I remember just being like, I can't tell her because I make money like making these wine videos.
Yeah.
And I haven't made any since I quit, but it was like I was still maintaining that relationship. And it was like, I don't know. I think it's just
it's really, especially when it's like work and, I'm really close with all the Drunk History guys. And they're also amazing.
And you did it.
And
right?
I did a bunch of, because one of my good friends, Jeremy Connor, he's one of the two guys who created Derek Waters and Jeremy Connor. And Jeremy and I have known each other since we were 6, and he's like one of my best friends, and he's awesome. But so I'm also friends with a lot of the narrators, and some of them after the show have decided to like stop drinking. But when they go out, if someone recognizes them, it's such a pressure to like have a shot, and they're like, "Oh, I know you from this show," and so it gets so complicated when it's not like, "Oh, I use it with work," but when it's actually like ingrained in like wine tasting or all that stuff, it's so much harder because you're like, I can't stop because this is my livelihood.
Yeah, it's
complicated.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess like, has your life been more fun since you stopped drinking? Like, that's like the what we're at. Like, yes, because for me it has been. It's tricky, but so how do you find the fun?
So I mean, it's well, again, like the more time goes by, the easier it is. And I remember the feeling of like when I was first trying to get sober and how hard it was for me to just get those 90 days. I'd be like 2 weeks in and I'd go, you know what? I could be 2 weeks in again in 2 weeks.
Right.
And the longer you go, the more you're sort of throwing away. Like when it take another 10 years to get back to where I was it's a long time. It's a long time. So the social aspect has gotten easier. I also think like I've healed so much internally that I have a much less shorter. I have a much longer fuse, I guess, or maybe I don't even have a fuse. Maybe it's not lit; it's just a string hanging out. I just so one of the things that's made me happier is like my conflict resolution has gotten healthier. If there's a problem, I can sit and I can listen without just being like, well, then I'm a bad person and I'm terrible and I'll get out of your hair.
Some of the shame
spiral. Yeah. So and that's one thing that I'm like, I just never want to have that again. I still have all the shame from all those years. Everyone starts to know at a certain point. Yeah. So there's less of the thing of like, oh, you don't drink? Like people just know at a certain point, which is really helpful. And then, I remember being in early meetings and people would be like, I can't imagine the life that I have right now. I couldn't have imagined being in this place. And I was so like, I just felt like a toxic cloud around me, and I was like, great for you,
Fuck off.
Yeah, that'll never be me. That's good if you're not unlovable.
I hope you shouted that out.
I did a lot of times. Yeah, it must be nice. And so that's one thing is like being able to just sort of work toward and accept the happiness around me and my daughter and Melanie. I get a lot of just love from them, and that's like a huge thing is just looking at my daughter and being like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I ever felt like I could be responsible enough for another human being, and now here you are, and you're so fun and weird and cool, and I like you a lot. And so, yeah, it comes in different ways. It's the absence of creating more shame and more sort of bad feelings. Learning who I am, learning what of my flaws were inherent, but I can control them, and what was just completely barely there, barely noticeable in my day-to-day life, but exacerbated by alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of lack of more bad stuff, and then the ability to live a life in which I am able to enjoy a healthy relationship and a child and being a dad and all that kind of stuff.
All right, I'll take it. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's fun.
That sounds better.
Yeah. Oh, I was just thinking the removing the shame, the anxiety too thing. My anxiety I drank to control my anxiety, but it also exacerbated my anxiety so much.
Oh my gosh!
It made me so much more anxious. So that is one of the things that I love so much more. I just am much more level-headed. I can be more present with my kids.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I was tipsy every night with my kids.
Yeah.
Almost of their entire lives.
Yeah.
And now that's pretty normalized.
I would slur words while I was reading books to them. That's not cool. And
hopefully they didn't burn memories then. That's what I'm hoping with my son.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm trying to develop hobbies now for the first time.
Oh yeah, I know that's fun.
Yeah. I swim laps with old people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nice. Do you have any of those hobbies that came up?
I mean, I definitely it is funny because they always say you replace one addiction with another.
Yeah.
Video games or phone games are a big vice, but also a healthier version of that, a more collaborative version is escape rooms. I got really into.
That's fun.
Just still hitting that escape. Jonesing for escape. Yeah. There's puzzles. So that kind of stuff I was really helpful, and just but yeah, I should have some more hobbies. I should.
No.
Stuff.
The video game thing. I just started. The minute I quit drinking, I was Tetris.
Oh yeah,
Tetris.
Satisfying.
So much Tetris. yeah.
Tetris is a good one. Yeah.
I feel like I just scroll TikTok. It's I find that my vice was eating a ridiculous amount of cookies. I'm not shaming for eating sugar. It's eating half a thing of Oreos, or you know what I mean?
Going too, yeah.
So now I'm okay, now that I've cut out drinking, now I need to be healthier with the other shit.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Oreos
I'd still rather eat sugar
for sure
than be drinking.
Well, that's the thing, and I you constantly sort of working on yourself. I'm working on tearing myself away from some of my little addictive phone games. But still would rather be doing that than the others thing. So
if you're going to still be able to drive your daughter if she needs to go.
But not while you're playing the game.
Not while I'm playing the game. No.
We're not
I want to be clear.
Yeah, no bird watching while driving.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I've gotten into birds.
Me too.
Oh,
we're dorks.
You hit 40 and
she's swimming with old people.
I swim with old people. I'm just a
lovely.
Thank you.
So let's say cheers.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for being our non-drinking buddy.
Thanks for being my non-drinking buddy.
I love speaking with Jason. I think he's an amazing person. And honestly, for me, he's such an inspiration. I saw him talking about being sober on the Drew Barrymore show. And I'm friends with him, but I didn't know because I'm friendly with him. So I didn't know about his sobriety. And it was such an inspiration. And I'm just so glad that he came on and that we got to talk to him. I feel like I learned a lot.
I learned so much. And I'm taking with me that thing about look for the similarities in somebody's story. And there's going to be a lot of differences. But even with our stories, maybe there's a similarity. Maybe you aren't feeling great the morning after. Maybe that will help you cut down or whatever. Finding the similarities. And then I also like how being present and in the lives of your kids, that's I'm really connecting to that.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yay.
And you're still going to go out to parties and you're still going to have fun and if you want to, and you're going to want to find joy in your life. So why not have a mocktail?
Hey, that's great. I used to love making cocktails.
Yes.
And just because we have to remove the booze doesn't mean we can't still have something delicious to drink. So I came up with this.
Woohoo!
It doesn't have a name yet, so I'm going to need you to name it.
Okay, I'll name it.
Okay, so these are the ingredients.
Okay.
We're going to do 1.5 ounces of apple cider. Oh, don't spill it on your wooden table.
Or do. That's fun.
And then we're going to just do a splash of lemon that we're going to squeeze fresh from the lemon. Right from the farm, the lemon farm.
Ooh, she got that lemon from my tree.
Okay,
yeah.
And then we're going to do a little bit of ginger beer.
Okay.
We're going to also top it off, but I like to mix it up. And I'm going to put the ice right here in the thing. The shaker. It's called a shaker. Look, I haven't bartended
This is
in
like
so long.
the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise.
Is that the song?
That's Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, God. Okay. So you shake it up. That's a familiar sound. Might be triggering for some. Okay.
There's no booze in there. Okay. This is...
no booze. Booze free.
Okay.
So there's ginger beer,
right.
lemon,
Ginger
apple
beer,
cider. So I need a drink name, and it should have a pun.
Okay. Oh wow, it should have a
should
pun.
be brilliant.
Okay. It's oh god. The apple spider.
Okay. How about Fall Fuck Festival?
Yep, that's a good pun because that's a thing. It's a fall fuck festival.
This is the Fall Fuck Festival, and I used a slice.
Relatable universal pun because everyone knows in fall you fuck and you go to a festival that's completely sober. Sober orgy with apple cider.
The thing about me is that I give you an opportunity to come up with a joke.
And I didn't.
If you don't come up with it within 3 seconds, I will make a dirtier joke.
Guy? You guys, who was the apple guy?
Steve Jobs?
No! Okay. I mean, I guess so.
Johnny?
Steve Soberjobs.
Steve Soberjobs. Okay, and they're garnish it with an apple slice, and but you drink it before it gets brown.
Okay.
All right. Cheers.
Tasty. Spicy.
Refreshing.
Nice and spice. Nice spice.
Nice spice. Nice. Instead of ice spice, it's nice spice.
Nice spice. We found it.
All right, and now we've come to the future. Just
This is
like
really good.
Gen Z. Hey, you're welcome. Listen, I'm a mocktail bartender. What do you want from me? So I'll put the recipe on whatever place.
In the show notes, I think.
Yeah, in the show notes. We'll put the recipe in the show notes so you too can make it at home.
Yes.
Fall Fuck Festival or a Nice Spice, whatever.
I think Nice Spice.
I think Fall Fuck Festival. Thank you so much for not drinking with me.
You're welcome. Thank you for not drinking with me. It is a pleasure being your non-drinking buddy.
Yes.
And we realize that a lot of you might not have friends who don't drink. So we're hoping that you can be our friend. We need friends.
Yeah, be our non-drinking buddy too.
Yeah.
Now, it's bad luck to not drink after you cheers. So
let's
drink, bitch.
Drink, not drink, bitch.